Welcome to part 3, and let me start with the bombshell. My latest survey done on the ground, accompanied by very careful calculations of number of votes and quite a lot of work we put into this, showed that if elections were held before the launch of the SGR, at the time we completed this was about 2-3 days ago, if elections were held on that particular day, the opposition would win the election by about 500,000 votes. Okay? That's about 500,000 votes. Now, the major turning point for the opposition, of course, is the Rift Valley. Okay? Now, this is really a very, what can I say? We were very generous to the incumbent, very generous to Jubilee in this particular analysis, according to me. Because I was working with a number of experts, people who know these things. I felt that they were very generous to the current government because there are a lot of other factors which I felt, numbers which I felt should have been added to the opposition, which they felt no, to be on the safe side, it should be 500,000 votes win for the opposition. Okay? Now, this is based on the fact that the Rift Valley, the Kalenjin Rift Valley, will not all vote for Jubilee. Okay, currently, as we speak, 3 days ago. That number was also based on very, very solid votes from Western Kenya, Luhya, Western Kenya, led by the Maragoli and the Bukusu sub-tribes of the Luhya. Very, very strong votes from that side. Okay. Now, this is an analysis I can stand on as of 3 days ago. Okay. Then the other thing that came out from our survey is that at that time there was a mood which was threatening to turn into a wave against the government. Now, one of the things which triggered this, we always talk about mood, is, I'm sure you must have guessed it, is this recent Ugali crisis. The crisis of maize meal not being in the country. It brought into very sharp focus the corruption problem in the country. Now, if you've been following some of the other surveys being done, you will have noticed that in virtually every survey being done, the word good governance, anti-corruption, anything to do with, there's been a lot to do with anti-corruption, anti-embezzlement, anti-bad management of funds, that has come out in each and every survey. Well, I can tell you, from what I know from the ground, for sure, that corruption is a major issue with the public. And the thing, I believe, let me give you a theory why. I believe that the opposition has been very successful in being able to in being able to sell the idea to the public and to the voters that their current economic hardships are linked to corruption in government. Okay? Let me just repeat that so that nobody misquotes me. The opposition has been very successful in selling voters the idea that the current economic hardships that Kenyans are facing right now have everything to do with corruption in government. Now, I know most of you will rush to brush this aside, but let me just, as you brush this aside, which is okay by me, as you brush it aside, remember one thing, and this is something which Moi understood very well. You can do a lot of things to ordinary people and get away with it. You can do a lot, even on a personal basis, you can do a lot of things to people and get away with it. But you try and touch their finances and see what happens. So this is what has happened in this case. The finances of Kenyans has been touched, by the hard economic times. I'm not saying by the Jubilee government, but the hard economic times. And by the way, I'm not making any excuses for the Jubilee government, but let's just call a spade a spade. There's no need of making a statement for the sake of making it. That's why I choose my words carefully. Okay? Of course, the governance of a country contributes to the economy or the well-being of the economy. But that is neither here nor there because there are a lot of other factors involved here. But I'm just giving you perception what has happened on the ground. The opposition has been able to sell the idea to the general public that a lot of the problems you people are facing, now talking to the manage, a lot of these hardships you're facing have to do with corruption in the government. And where the public did not believe them, they finally believed them when this maize scandal came to the fore. The maize scandal was very, very, very damaging to the Jubilee government. Very damaging. so damaging, so damaging, that I am convinced, even as I sit here, I have no evidence and I'm still following up on it, that that thing must have been some sort of sabotage against the government. Because the timing, the way it was done, you know, how do you pull off a corruption deal so close to election like that one, which involves the food security of the country? How do you do that? I mean, let's be honest, even Jubilee supporters, just answer that question. How do you do something like that? So anyway, those were my findings, and that is the way the situation stood before the SGR was launched. Now, I keep on saying before the SGR was launched because I am convinced in my heart, I am convinced by virtue of my experience, that the SGR has turned the tide for Jubilee. It is a concrete infrastructure project, the biggest project Kenya has ever undertaken. It is there to be seen. It cannot be wished away. It cannot be dreamt away. It is there. And it is going to have a political impact. Whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, whether NASA likes it or not, it is going to have a political impact. And one more thing, it is also going to have an economic impact. And it's going to have an impact on the livelihoods, on the earnings of people in Kenya. Yeah? Now let me just give you a simple example. There are some businesses which were not possible before the SGR came along. They were not possible because of the timelines. Travel from Mombasa to Nairobi, how long it takes, they were just impossible. But by reducing the timelines, it opens up so many business opportunities, so many different business ideas that can now be a reality. Okay? Now obviously, when these people are successful, when these people keep going to the bank every day to bank money, do you think they'll be thinking about the opposition? That is how powerful a political weapon the SGR is. Okay? Now, according to me, the only way the opposition can fight back and be able at least to gain some ground here is just to keep on doing what they were doing before. Yeah? The mood on the ground seems to be, there's a lot of anti-corruption, anti-graft in the government. And you see, you cannot convince voters that these politicians are all the same. Because me and you, we know all these politicians are the same. We know that whether it's NASA which sits in government, or whether it's Jubilee which sits in government, whether we cry blood, we cry what, there'll still be corruption. Yeah? Now I know there's some of us very naive. We've recently started following politics. We don't understand how Kenya works. I know there's some of us dreamers who say, no. When NASA goes there, kutakuwa zero corruption, zero tolerance to corruption. Well, some of us older Kenyans have had this thing before. Yeah? And I can give you an example. We had it most recently when the government of President Kibaki was about to take over. They were categorical and they repeated. And they said, you write it down somewhere and take a scorecard and, you know, those promises we've given you, just put that aside and just take them as we are able to implement everything. So that by the time the next election comes, you look at your scorecard and you'll see we have performed 100%. That's what they said. Yeah? In fact, in one very hilarious, hilarious because of what happened later, Kiraitu Murungi addressed the retired President Moi and told him, you go back to Kabarak and look after your goods. Yeah? Be sure to be watching TV regularly, and then we'll show you how a government is supposed to be run. Now it was hilarious because it did not take 2 or 3 months before those Kiraitus and Moi Kibaki and so on were rushing back to Moi to ask him, bwana mzee, tumeshindwa hapa, tusaidie. Because the government was so shaky, they had to rush back and ask for help from Moi Kibaki. That was why I'm saying it was hilarious. Anyway, what I'm saying is that we have seen this before. So my point is this. The ordinary voter does not see that. The ordinary voter believes that NASA is going to be zero corruption. Yeah, I am telling you that all these politicians are the same. I've always been telling you that. Okay, I'm not against NASA. I'm not against any side. Yeah, both are the same as far as corruption is concerned. But what the opposition has done, it has successfully sold the idea to the voting public that a change of guard will completely eradicate corruption, which will mean more money in their pockets. That's really what it is. And this is a very powerful campaign weapon. As powerful as the SGR is on behalf of Jubilee, if NASA can be able to recover from this SGR thing, and don't ask me what I think, because I have no idea. That's unpredictable. That's gray area. Let's wait and see what happens. But if NASA is able to recover from this SGR thing, if they're able to, then that will be a powerful weapon for them to counter and get back to their lead and probably win these elections. That is how the situation is. Okay, thank you very much for being patient with me through this 3-part series. I know I've covered a lot of things, but I've tried, my whole idea was to make this thing very clear to you so that there are no questions, so that even going back as you go to discuss this with your friends, as you go to discuss this at your local watering joint, or as you discuss in other social places, you will have strong, solid points to challenge people who want to sell you dreams, who want to sell you things which are impossible. Yeah, you know, it's very interesting. Sometimes I sit and listen to people analyzing politics, and I just wonder where they're coming from. Okay, but at least now, with these 3 parts, you will have solid questions to ask them when they give you ridiculous statements. This is Chris Kumekucha. The pleasure has all been mine. Till next time, thank you.